Welcome everyone to our panel today on prioritizing performance and predictions for 2021. I'm Bob Glazer. I'm the founder and CEO of Acceleration Partners, and we are the largest independent global partner marketing agency. We work with some great brands and help them launch and manage their program. I'm excited to be joined today by two esteemed colleagues in the industry. So I'll let them introduce themselves. Brian, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Bob. Brian Marcus. I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing and Partnerships at Tune. Tune is a partner marketing platform based in Seattle. Started my career on the e-commerce side for an old cataloger. Went on to work through two of the larger platforms in the affiliate space, Google Affiliate Network and eBay. Went on to run seller marketing over at a place called Teespring around digital creation and producing physical goods. And now helping others build their own private networks through our partner marketing platform.
Keith.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob, for having me. Brian, great to see you as always, my friend. I'm Keith Posehn, head of marketing at Tundra. We're a wholesale marketplace online, so effectively places for retailers, both physical and e-commerce, to go ahead and buy all the product they need to sell online from a ton of amazing brands. I've been in the e-commerce and affiliate marketing and digital industry for a long time. Previously was at Nextdoor, before that at Uber, before that at Square, before that at Caviar, got bought by Square, and before that ran my own startups, built a DSP, ran my own agency, et cetera. And before that, worked at agencies. And it's been a long and interesting road, but also one where I've been able to spend a lot of time both learning and loving the marketing and growth side of the business, and also the technology too. So building the tools behind it, having an understanding, appreciation for those, as well as knowing how to actually build a business to drive really meaningful, sustainable growth.
Great. So for the format, we're going to borrow something that we did at Affiliate Summit a few years ago that worked, and we took about 5 or 6 core issues and are going to sort of debate and dialogue around them. If you have questions, throw them into the QA. We're going to tackle about 7 or 8 subjects, and then we'll leave some open QA time at the end for other questions that we haven't covered. But feel free to ask a question while we're talking about an issue, and I'll kick it off. I feel like this is it's like a debate structure, but all right. So Brian and Keith, Q4 is predicted at this point to be the biggest online shopping season we've experienced by a landslide. Digital is supposed to account for 30% of sales this holiday season, and affiliate and partner marketing are seeing a pretty big growth right now on the tailwinds of that. Why do you think this is the case? What's causing the shift? And if you're a brand, how should you position for success in this environment? Brian, you want to kick us off on that?
I was going to say it's hard in this format to know, Keith, if I'm looking at you or Bob, but I'm happy to. So
whoever speaks fastest, yeah.
it's like Jeopardy, right? All right, Alex Trebek, rest in peace. But let's start with the driving growth piece. First and foremost, I think accountability and risk mitigation are driving the growth and the shift to affiliate today. More people are buying online, with trusted, authoritative sites to guide their buying. And partner marketing sort of fits that proposition to a T, as they're investing in relationships that are proven to work. And so digital marketing is transparent, it's measurable. COVID makes these relationships much more critical. And so how do you position for success? You need to recognize that this new normal really presents opportunities to strengthen your partnerships. It presents you an opportunity to be a partner in a way that just hasn't been seen. It's unprecedented. It means adjusting your program to reflect the reality of today. And it also really means, and we've seen this lately, is that the actions you take now will outlive this period of time in the future. So be real careful about how you treat your partners. Just briefly, I think it means tuning in. And this is something I like to think about a lot, is thinking about the partner and being really attuned to how you're strategizing with them, the right objectives, the right portfolio and policies and incentives, and then thinking about how you're going to market with them and operationalizing them, removing friction, making sure every conversion counts, checking for compliance, paying them as expected, and then lastly, optimizing, just making sure that you're learning your lessons and doubling down on the things that work and things that don't work, and rinse and repeat. I mean, this is just like any other time of affiliate marketing. This is the way you should be running your programs, but you need to be doing it with a whole different perspective about how important those relationships are.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. And I think it's interesting too. I love that you kind of hit on the program structure point, Brian. The other thing too, and part of the explanation for this rapid growth right now too, is on the customer side too. We're seeing right now, due to COVID especially, a massive shift in consumer behavior, but that shift is simply moving up. The time frame is changing for it. We've seen as e-commerce has emerged as a massive category in and of itself, as well as just the general digital movement for goods and services across the world. That movement has happened, but the change is accelerated. And it's really around trust. So there is trust in partners for one, and partnership marketing is always a two-way street. Something I learned very early, and I think that we've all seen is incredibly important. But at the same time, it's that relationship with the customer. Customers used to go establish trust with a brand in a different context. They could go outside, they could go to a store, they could try a product. That's been taken from us. And it's been taken from us for months now, and is unlikely to come back in the way that we have previously wanted. And it definitely won't come back in the same form. So what's happened is instead an acceleration of a trend that already existed. We are seeing people want to establish trust through these online channels, and ads don't do it. They're looking for influencers on YouTube. They're looking for partners of brands that can show how a product or a service is valuable in a way that that customer can trust. And that's why partnerships are so important right now, is because as a brand, you can establish a trusted relationship with a customer in a way that you fundamentally could not otherwise. You're accessing them outside of the world of your own brand at a point when they're receptive to your message and with a third party who they trust. And that trust relationship right now is so important. So as we see this shift move up, we see the way that people establish trust changing. It means now is the time to take advantage of it. But to Brian's point, you can't do that without a partner program that is well structured, where you develop relationships with your partners and establish their trust with you too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you said. You know, the one thing I'll add to that is that there's two things going on, right? You're seeing there's more shift to digital, so it's coming offline to digital. But then within digital, a lot of these brands are digitally native, and so they don't have brand budgets, right? They have acquisition CPA budgets, so the composition of the budgets look a little bit different. And you know, most of online advertising outside of this channel is auction based. And if you think about the triopoly, you know, Google, Facebook, Amazon at this point, you know, you have people pouring into it and they're just dumping more money into it. You know, it's costing you more and more money to get the same thing. So you actually have this weird duality, which is you have all this demand and move to digital, but then the number 1, 2, and 3 places you would go are getting more and more expensive to get the same customer. So brands really need a different approach.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting because we've seen the way that COVID has impacted brands in various ways. The affiliate channel has proven to be really resilient in this. But again, like, you know, I think we've all seen, you know, brands are increasingly focused on strong ROI as well. I'm curious for the two of you, how has the pandemic changed, like maybe the C-suite view of the channel in your experience dealing with these companies that are looking at the channel now and with more high level focus on it? Like, how has that changed, guys?
Bob, why don't you take that one first?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting for us. I think, you know, I think COVID has actually put the affiliate and partner channel into the C-suite in a way that we hadn't seen before. In March and April, everyone turned off programmatic, you know, top of funnel and sort of sponsored influencer marketing, like just gone overnight. Like first thing everyone turned off. It's interesting. They turned off everything that was furthest away from a conversion. You know, obviously, you know, with budgets sort of coming down, we actually had a company, very large company, public company, where by April the affiliate channel was the only thing running. We saw this in a couple of cases. And just totally new awareness of the C-suite, even the CEO saying, hey, we saw in this one brand how we were able to move a lot of inventory through the partner channel. How could we do this in the other brand? It actually just brought about this total new awareness to, oh, well, when we're looking at budgets, someone said, well, why would we ever shut that off? Like if we get an incremental $1, we could just leave it running. And if we get the $1, then we pay the 10 cents that we said we were going to pay. So there's this interesting irony in that every time there's a recession or something, people really like remember how great this model is, but they sort of forget that when things are frothy and they have a lot of venture capital and they're pouring it elsewhere. The returns still aren't there, but I guess they have the budget to have the poor return. So I actually think that the channel got an awesome audition in the C-suite in March, April, May, and I think maybe moved up a notch of respect and awareness during those times.
Yeah, and I think in the 2 decades that I've seen the recessions happen and the cycles happen, I agree with your characterization that in bad times affiliate marketing tends to step up, and in good times it tends to get pushed down a little bit because people get emboldened. I think of the C-suite, if I kind of break it down a little bit, I think about the fact that CFOs want focus and tangible outcomes from marketing. They care about predictability, and they care about that amidst uncertainty. So they need to make sure that every dollar is being spent in the right place. CMOs are looking for ways to diversify their risks and their bets, more ponds to fish in. Affiliates provide that during this time of uncertainty, and CTOs are looking for technology that unifies their understanding of customers. So in this realm, you can imagine the C-suite conversations are beyond the CMO. They're really now starting to bring together the technology and the marketing together, along with the finance and the budgeting. And affiliates are taking center stage because they're big enough now, and they're known. You see them on TV these days, you know, in primetime television. These guys have a seat at the table now, whereas I think in the past, you know, it was the triopoly was the topic of conversation. So I think it's a really exciting time for the really great partners out there to step up and be counted as a big player in the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
What about
Brian,
you, Keith?
actually, I'm curious, like you're thinking here though, because you're talking about the ponds that we're fishing in, and there's speaking of one pond, like mobile affiliate. Like, that's when I'm kind of curious from you, like, you know, what's holding back the growth there? I mean, because over at Uber, I was driving a ton of mobile growth. That was definitely when we pioneered a lot with you guys, with Button and others, and like really trying to push and figure out how to again take our value proposition, place it in other apps so people understood the value of Uber and what it provided in a different context, but where it's still relevant to them. But I don't think we've seen that not get fully cracked in the industry yet. I'm just like curious because you're so far into that now. Have you seen change there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, you know, it is amazing when I came to Tune thinking about that. There are actually 2 worlds that think about exactly the same thing. They just have such different paradigms. And their paradigms are organizational paradigms where they have like literally grown up in 2 different worlds. There's paradigms around tracking and the fact that in an app store, you've got lots of hurdles to go through to be able to create an, you know, tracking that carries through from point A to point B. You've got user experience hurdles that really, if you go from one paradigm of desktop or mobile web to mobile, the experience itself has yet to be fully realized. And lastly, I think there's a barrier around familiarity. I think like just the players in the different spaces don't yet know each other as well. Maybe there's some that are taking the lead in the other space, but a unified view of thinking about performance marketing is just not, it hasn't fully realized yet. And I think that's, I don't know, I kind of think, I think we're on the precipice of it. And I see a lot of players out there now talking about mobile in a way that I hadn't before. And I actually think that that's a really positive thing. I think its time has truly come. I don't know.
Yeah,
Bob,
well, there's almost this insinuation that it's an either or, right? It's like mobile or affiliate. I actually think if we dig in, mobile's probably the dominant. You know, if you include tablet, and we looked at kind of sources of traffic and conversion, I actually think that mobile has gone from Achilles heel because unless it was an app or something that you used all the time a couple of years ago that you were going back to, like an eBay or a Zulily or otherwise, you were sort of at a disadvantage from a conversion. But think about how much that has changed from, you know, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, just now click on it, see it, use your finger. It's actually, the conversion process is probably faster than offline. But I think people need to, you know, I'll touch on this, I know in one of our later questions, is not almost assume that mobile is embedded in everything that they're doing and say, look, let's just even think of someone like Ebates, right? And you say, oh, well, that's a loyalty publisher. Well, they have a lot of cell phones, right? And they say, hey, do you want us to do a campaign where we text, 10 million people that fall under this criteria or do X? So I actually think that brands need to more look in the gradation of, I think all publishers now have different types of offerings, right? There's more people actually now back on desktop a little more for certain activities now that they're home and online for others. But I don't think it's like, I think we're moving past where it's sort of ubiquitous. It is not a mobile affiliate or a non-mobile affiliate. You need to get in with some partners and understand what programs they're offering and how they can bring different types of traffic to you.
I don't know, Keith, you grew up like fast on Uber with mobile. Did you see that integration going, starting to happen, or was that, did you feel you were living in primarily a mobile world at that stage?
Mobile was definitely like a big part of it. It kind of depended on the context. I think when we look at like mobile versus non, it's really around, you're trying to make sure you're present where your customers are. That's really your goal here, is to say when they are doing something where you need to be present, make sure you are in whatever context that is. I mean, the initial challenge was like a lot of mobile affiliate was very, very low quality because it was just simply, let's show banner ads, let's be an interstitial in a mobile game or be a reward in something. And so relatively low value and low incrementality. So you weren't really changing the customer's destiny. You were just kind of like poking at them over and over, and maybe they might cave. But by and large, you didn't really change behavior that much. That has shifted. That was one of the things we did try to accelerate at Uber, was to say, look, can we be in these apps where people need to get a ride? Or can we be somewhere where someone's thinking about money and income? Be like, here's how you can make more money. Here's how you can go ahead and pad your income so you can afford that trip. So as to be relevant in that point. I think, Bob, I like your comment on it too. It's like, we need to remember, in the end, it's not like one or the other. It's about being there in the right way. In the end,
yeah, and look, this is a interesting, difficult time for mobile in some segments, because let's think about what was the most, like, mobility companies, restaurants, travel, like a lot of the sort of impulse based on where you are. Like, this is a really different market right now, and those shifts are probably short to midterm, but they're considerable for both publishers and brands.
And what did it too is what people cared about when they were thinking about those products changed. So with Uber, it went for less mobility and food delivery and groceries and everything else, and safety and mobility. So what they cared about also changed. And so Uber had to like change how they were approaching it as well during this. So I think it also means that's the one challenge with partner marketing, is you have to be kind of thinking ahead and like, what are your customers going to care about? Make sure you're where they're going to care about you, where you're going to be relevant in their life.
I also, interestingly enough, I think some of the goals between mobile and desktop have changed. I mean, I remember back at eBay when the mobile department was in a completely different state, different building, they were just thinking about app downloads. And I think the real shift has happened, I think, and will happen once they start thinking about that journey and how they contribute to each other and how you can impact through performance marketing and those different steps in the journey. So that opens up a whole, you can broaden your mind a little bit more and say, okay, it's great to get somebody to your app, and then what, and how do the different players help in that world.
So I'm curious, another big trend that is on top of everyone's mind is privacy, right? We're seeing changes from Apple, Google, GDPR, CCPA coming out of California. Do these changes like help the industry, hurt the industry, a little bit of both? Brian, we'll start with you.
I think the changes are a win for consumers everywhere, and it's an opportunity for the industry to improve how users experience and perceive affiliate marketing. I mean, I'm so excited. I love it when the affiliate world and the partner world has that opportunity to win. And this is an opportunity, once we are able now to refine our tracking and reporting methodologies and being able to measure campaigns, in a different kind of way. I mean, the cookie world has been really largely destroyed by these moves. And I think it's time to adopt different types of paradigms, such as postbacks, for example, where you're not dependent on the browser. So I think this is good for users. This is about helping them be able to trust the things that are shown to them and being able to take action in that. So I think those that operate in that capacity in the performance world will thrive. What do you think, Keith?
I tend to agree. I think that there's, despite it disconnecting some of the things that allow us to be more relevant and maybe make experiences more broadly across the web better, because again, relevance does carry benefits for the end user. There's also drawbacks. And again, there is backlash because of how people felt, that these tools were being used. But the flip side of it too is one of the things I think everybody forgot is that the site experience is something that's so key, that end user customer experience, make their experience as great as possible. And everybody got so used to just funneling tons of JavaScript client-side stuff, just loading everything on the browser and making the experience worse, both by virtue of monetization, tracking, analytics, everything else. We kind of forgot that, like, wait a minute, we're trying to make the experience good. And so I think this push into server to server to better have companies aggregate the data, know how to stitch it together to go ahead and get a better picture of what's happening without really, either without making a worse consumer experience or without really violating the trust that their customers are placing in them. I think those two things are really important. It presents a big opportunity. And we are seeing that shift to server, because that's going to allow us to get it out of the client to go ahead and better create a way to utilize data in a way that both builds trust or upholds the trust that customers place, and also still enables brands to understand what's happening in a way that enables them to deliver a better experience.
Yeah, what's really interesting, to what I said before in this auction world, right? So the whole programmatic kind of auction sense of the internet is this notion that people are being served ads a whole bunch of places at a bunch of times. People want to, place a bid based on some personally identifiable information of that person, right? So PII and all this third-party stuff is critical to that ecosystem, because you're talking about there's no context, you don't know the person, but we're making a decision to buy, let's say it's an article about new cars. They're making a decision to buy on that article, maybe not less on the context, but figuring out that Keith is in the market for a new car and Keith is reading that article, right? The notion of partner marketing flips that entirely on its head. It says that publishers are the merchandisers, right? A sneaker blogger who's focusing on the top hottest sneakers and then sending those to, and then has a huge audience that comes to read about the hottest sneakers and then sending those to Adidas, Reebok, and Nike. They don't need PII. Like, it's not important. So I actually think that this channel, like, in all the sort of privacy constrictions, it doesn't really hurt it, because this channel is based on merchandising decisions and publishers knowing their audiences and building relevant content and based on that relevance. So out of all the channels, obviously, if the internet lost its ability to track anything in advertising, everyone would be equally impacted. But there are many more industries for whom, that personally identifiable, trackable past behavior is critical to their ad placement. This channel is contextual. It's about where someone is and what they're doing and otherwise.
Exactly. It's like we were talking about before. It's where they build that trust. And if you're as opposed to saying, hey, Bob, you're in the market for a new car, and trying to advertise when you're not relevant to what you're thinking about, that's less effective than when you're thinking about the new car and the brand is there.
And I don't think it prohibits marketers with their customers and their relationships to get personal. And in fact, that it becomes just that much more personal under permission. And that shouldn't hurt anything. It should help create trust and build that trust. Let me shift gears for a little bit. I got a question for you guys. Thinking about companies and CFOs, we talked a little bit about it. I know that there's always this challenge of how to budget for this channel. And I'm just kind of curious, like, why is there still this challenge? And how do we change it? I don't know. Who wants to start this one?
That's a fun one. Do you mind if I go, Bob?
Go. You've dealt. Keith fought the internal fight. I fought the external fight. So I was gonna say, I have a special board I bang my head on about this issue, but so.
I wish I had that. I think it's a challenge to change the perception for finance teams about how to allocate money to it. It's not a channel that you say, go spend more money. It's a challenge you say, this is how much I want back. This is what I want my payback period to be. This is what I want my margin to be. Can you get me more based on that? And so it's for us trying to help finance understand that it's not like you can say, oh, I need you to spend less this month. It's like, well, great. You want me to fire half my sales team? Because they're not going to come back. That's not how it works. It's instead, what do you want back out of the channel? Helping finance teams understand, don't say spend $1 million. Say, I need you to make me X million bucks. And we go, great, this is how we can get there. Or we understand you want this much or this return on investment, but based on what we have, we're not going to, this is how much we will get you back based on this kind of level of ROI. So it's really less about the amount of money to put into it, and it's more about understanding what they get back out of it. But the challenge is they're also looking to create a predictable path, to be able to say on the path to IPO, this is how much we'll spend to this, or to be able to manage to the street, this is how much we're going to get back, or to investors to say, hey, we're going to take this amount of money and put it in partner marketing to fuel the fire for our product growth. It's, again, they're trying to think in terms of allocations, and the challenge is always for affiliate teams to help them understand that allocation is a thought. Think about instead the return that you want and help join those two. It took a long time, but we got that understanding through by and large. But again, it's the kind of thing where education is key. Finance teams have to understand, like, you can't put money, you can't put a block of cash towards it. You have to give them you have to allow affiliate teams to know what they need to get back to you, and then they will go spend against that. And then when you artificially constrain it, the impacts of those artificial constraints can be far worse than anticipated. You can't tell a sales team, oh, I want you to stop marketing this month. What are they going to do? They're going to go elsewhere. You have to manage that relationship. So it's a lot of an education problem with finance teams. But again, I've seen them get through that, understand it, and then better know how to work with the channel.
I'd love to jump on something you said just about the predictability. Here's something that's really different about this channel. And Bob, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, is just the idea that this is a human channel, right? So this is not like a programmatic channel necessarily. So being able to turn things on and off on a whim like you would in paid search and display, it is not predictable like you would. You can't find that efficient frontier or the elasticity of a human being's price elasticity with commissions and all these other things that you can with paid search. And that was my experience at eBay, was really trying to figure out, like, what's a human being's elasticity out there, and how do I educate CFO that I can't just make somebody do something because I've changed my parameters in the machine. So I think you're right about predictability, but I'll add the element of human to the fact that you're not pressing buttons, and therefore it makes it less predictable and scary. I don't know, Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, Todd Crawford, I think, said last time we were on stage that keywords don't have feelings. I thought that was a really funny way of describing the difference. But starting with the answer in mind, this channel should not be on a fixed budget. Like, absolutely not. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. I can tell you, back when we used to have a client 6 or 7 years ago, other channels got their budget and they would spend it, and then you'd find out if it works or not. So I can understand why you want to put limits on it. And every quarter, we'd either be running ahead on revenue and the marketing team would be happy and they'd be like worried that we have to steal the budget from somewhere else. Or we'd be running low and there's like extra budget. So the finance team is happy and they want to give it to someone else, but the marketing team's not happy. And I was like, this is just utter insanity. This is the inability of anyone to step above and say, we are teaching for the test, we are not doing the right thing. I mean, as Keith said, this requires education. Someone I saw years ago, who is now a CMO, said she used to sit down with her finance team, she'd get them lunch, she would explain the channel, she would explain how they want a budget. I still think that a little of the budget stuff is from people running old-fashioned programs where they kind of have like a single rate, for everyone. If you've tiered your partners by quality, if you've used the technologies that platforms like Tune have so that you're not paying for the things that you don't want, then you should already have a rate card that says, oh, for $1 of this type of revenue, I'll always pay 7 cents. And for $1 of this type of revenue, I'll always pay a penny. And you can't set it and forget it. You got to watch those quality metrics. But if the quality's there, you should never want to constrain the volume, but you've got to have that feedback loop. And I was literally smashing my head into this board in March and April because, we have some clients who are offline and online, and their online store shut down, their offline store shut down, their online businesses went up 3x. they are like just killing it. And then we're getting these things that we got to shut down the program because we're out of budget. Someone assigned the budget in January before a global pandemic. Revenue is up 300%. Like, and we're finding like the budget isn't relevant anymore. We need to sit down. We need to look at the incrementality. Like, is this good revenue? Is this good sales? If it is, the budget doesn't matter. And in fact, the irony was we need to save the budget to like fund the people who at the stores who don't have jobs. I mean, that's like the ultimate, like, steal from Peter to pay Paul. Makes zero sense at all. So you're going to take money out of the profitability engine to cover the areas that are weaker. So this is something that a partner manager or affiliate manager needs to get good at talking about. We've built slides for our clients, like presentation on how to describe this. We try to help them have these discussions. Like, let's have that FAQ with the finance team. Let's explain it to them. Let's agree with the thresholds that they're comfortable with and what points we're going to check in. But please don't give us a fixed budget. It's just it's the worst possible way you could manage an outcome-based channel.
Maybe if it was, it's like, maybe if it was built as a sales channel, right? Versus a promotional channel, it would change everybody's way of thinking a little bit where it lives on the P&L.
Yeah, it's like I just have straight up said to finance teams, do you want the money or not? It's like, we're gonna make you money. This is the payback period. Do you want the money?
Here's the language you use.
Take the money away, we don't get the money in the future.
We pay for our marketing after we get the sale. Do you want us to do more of that? Right? I mean, that's language that they can understand.
Exactly, and that gets through. But I think it's a big reorientation for them. So I've got a question for the two of you. So we talked about budgeting and everything else, and we've seen a lot of stuff in mobile here and privacy. But I'm curious, what are like the exciting developments you guys think? What do you think when you look at 2021? Like, what's the big trend you think is going to prevail in this? Is it a continuation of stuff we've seen? Is there a big shift happening again? Like, we talked about this shift in terms of consumer behavior. What else are you guys seeing?
Bob, I'm going to let you take a crack at that one first.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff. I think the industry is generally moving beyond a service or a tactic to like its own channel. And I think we're seeing like M&A and investment on a scale that we've never seen before, right? It's super fractured. So if you think about Facebook or Google, there's a 10 million pound gorilla, and then there's like some large infrastructures that support that. So you have big agencies and software packages and otherwise. The partner, it's always been such a small ecosystem, but the M&A this year I think has exceeded anything we've seen. It started on the agency side, it's continued with the platform side, and what that then encourages is other ancillary products and services to come in and build on top of the platforms, kind of like a WordPress ecosystem where someone can say, it was always this closed wall years ago. I had to go to Linkshare, CJ, 20 years ago, and you got everything from them or not. I couldn't necessarily go to Tune and then I could bring this tool that I want to lay on top of it and this tool or otherwise. So I think that the sort of consolidation is good because it makes this, we still have lots of different platforms. We don't have the Google in this industry. You don't have the Facebook, but at least starts to bring the sort of volume and automation and stuff that makes it a bigger budget channel and I think get more awareness.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think the thing that's been most exciting up until this point is the fact that advertisers can now use technology to work with whoever they want. Right now, this is like we finally got to the point where tracking is getting more ubiquitous and similar, and division of labor, thanks to your book, in many ways, we've been figuring out sort of who belongs where and what it costs. So you don't have to worry about that. Anybody can get into this and run their own network. But I think some of the validation of what you described is really exciting. And I think one of the things that's happened is up until this point, it's been about traffic. So I think some of the new players that are going to join these different platforms are going to be different technologies that work alongside of affiliates and partners to help that last mile. I'm seeing like graduation of just affiliates from just traffic acquisition to different types of technologies that work on a performance basis. And I'm seeing that virtual buying assistance, in-cart abandonment types of technologies, things like that are starting to pop up on a performance basis like they always do in affiliate. You always start, all the great stuff starts in affiliate and on a performance basis. But I'm seeing that happen more and more as all that other stuff gets sorted out. And I think creative optimization tools are going to be more and more, the personalization, all those tools that are going to bolt onto these platforms are going to be an additional bump to this channel. And we're going to see that a whole lot more with different players coming into the mix. So affiliate partnerships, it's not just going to be about traffic acquisition now. We're going to see performance marketing in sort of all aspects up and beyond the last mile, like we see, like what happened in mobile, by the way, should be happening everywhere. It's not just the app install, but it's getting people lifetime value and technologies to do such. What do you think, Keith?
Interesting. Yeah, I tend to agree, guys. And I think it's like you're saying, Brian, the way to kind of elaborate on the point is we're seeing products emerge as affiliates too, because nothing really stops it from being a product. And beyond just content or a personality, it's the notion of a product that has value in and of itself to an end user. Like one of the challenges with the affiliate game for a long time was, if you're an affiliate, which I was for a while, what about your affiliate site or presence or anything was something that people would miss if it was gone? I focused on things, websites, authority sites that people would miss if they were gone, because I looked at it and said, I want it to stand on its own merits instead of become something value on its own. And I might have monetized it through affiliate and through paid arbitrage, but in the end, it was still something where there was value on its own. I think we're seeing again, like that kind of thing, but it's happening not just in terms of building a relationship with a customer as a website where they're trying to get information, but instead ways that you're delivering value to that customer. Acorns, I think, is a great example with Found Money. Noah and the team have made an amazingly good financial app that's changing lives, but at the same time, you can go in it, not just improve your financial life, but then find ways to go ahead and again make extra income in your normal life or to reduce your costs. That's a product that adds value to the customer in a way that's monetized and affiliate, and they pass a lot of that reward on. Same thing with eBay. Again, people create a very, very loyal following around the notion of rewards. But it was still, again, just the loyalty aspect. It had something. Now we're seeing that expand more broadly in products again. And Ebates is expanding broadly too, but we're seeing these products expand and have broader impact in people's lives. They stand on their own. They're valuable to people on the whole. But at the same time, like Ibotta, Acorns, Ebates, all these, they are also something that monetizes in this method as an affiliate partner and does so quite effectively.
Yeah, it's fun to watch entities. I always like the example of like what T-Mobile does. They have an acquisition program, so they need people to drive traffic to stay T-Mobile. But at the same time, they also have an audience, and they're able to bring in other partners to be able to use offers to present that to. So now you're starting to see an entity like a T-Mobile as both an affiliate consumer and being a player as a publisher in those spaces. I think you'll see more and more, as I think Acorns is probably a good example, and others where they have their own audiences now, and they can use their own monetization strategies to give their audiences great things that drive loyalty to themselves, to that brand. Well, let's like broaden the spectrum here to international here. As I know you love this one, Keith. I could see that one. It looks like you'll be the first one to answer this, but let me ask. It's around thinking about continued growth and the challenges, the unique challenges and opportunities that brands face when they're bringing their program global. What are some of those? Give us some of your experiences and things that we should be thinking about into 2021 as the world's changing here.
Yeah, I think the battle I fought and won was to get people to understand your affiliate program is global. There is no distinction. There is no difference between your US program and your Europe program, usually, unless your product is literally fundamentally different. And even then, why would you tell your partner that they have to sign up in two programs if they drive traffic between the US and the UK? Like, why? It's not the region that creates the program. It's the product that creates the program. So think about your product and think about its global impact. And then regionally, the only differences are pricing and terms and what you're willing to accept and not, what's allowed and not allowed in a region. And I think that mindset helped us take the Uber program across 90 countries because we realized the only difference between Saudi Arabia and the Netherlands and the US was price. That was it. That's all that actually differed between them. Egypt was not any different than France or than Canada or Brazil, except the price for a rider. That was a distinction. So really, I think people have to kind of break out of it and go, your regional approach of organizing your company might make sense from an operational perspective, but this is not an operational challenge in that way. This is instead a product level challenge. And that product itself goes across the whole world. So unless you specifically carve your product by regions, you don't need to carve your program by regions, because that doesn't provide you advantages. In fact, if anything, it creates artificial constraints that hampers the growth of your program. We've seen this in e-commerce where they have separate programs in different regions, and in the end, the programs don't talk to each other. And as a result, they miss opportunities for growth. And those opportunities are significant. The ones with global programs I've seen almost always do better because they're thinking about it on a product level.
Yeah, and just dovetailing on what Keith said, I mean, if it was 10 years ago and you had a global program, you probably had 4 agencies and 4 platforms, right? And so it naturally led itself to silos. And those teams were different budgets or otherwise. But as the platforms become more globalized, I mean, the biggest growth in our area is purely global programs, ones that are saying, I need to be in these 7 countries to start, because I think these new D2C companies are more virtual. They have less infrastructure. They grow faster. Yep. So it's a really big opportunity. I would say a couple of years ago, you know, we built the largest global presence, but it was more that like someone would sign a global platform, hire us in the US, and then kind of talk about another area a year later or say, can we bring you into here? Now it's really, they're starting with planning for multiple countries from the beginning. A lot of that was, I think, tech, but I think we're seeing truly just global partner programs from the outset. It's a big part of the growth. I will say as well, it's a big part of the opportunity. This is also one of the biggest areas of caution. Look, marketers are good at marketing, and Keith has seen this. He's had agency pitches and platform pitches and otherwise. And you know, there's a lot of people out there claiming global capabilities without in-market resources. You cannot manage a German publishers and program from the US with English-speaking resources. You just can't. And I think a lot of the folks, people don't like in marketing say, we don't do that. That's a term you don't hear a lot. And so we come in and we find someone's been trying to do that or misrepresenting it. And it really doesn't work well. So this is where the brands really have to do their due diligence. So are the platforms that you're working with, are they in the market? Are they operating? Do they have the resources? Can they pay out? But more importantly, on the account side and the agency side, like, are the resources there in market? You need in market, there are cultural implications. There's all kinds of stuff. You need to be in these markets. You need language capabilities. This is not something that can be faked. And we have won a fair amount of programs in the last 9 months from agencies that I'd say were faking global coverage and brands that decided that that was a risk for their program.
Yeah, I'll just elaborate on that too. Oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead. Yeah, please.
Just elaborate a little bit on that. It's in the end, it's not just about like a platform can pay into 100-something countries, but that's not enough. The platform, the agency, the company has to be able to support into those countries too. You have to be able to support where your partners are. It wasn't enough for us to be able to say, oh, we can go ahead and talk to people in APAC by hopping on the phone call. No, I needed people in Singapore to go ahead and make the phone calls, to talk to the partners, to meet with them wherever they were in APAC, to make sure that they understood the value of what Uber could do and to create that relationship. If you can't support in a country, then you will fail. You have to be able to